Would you like to introduce yourself in 3 sentences?
I am Sam. Actually, those are 3 words, not 3 sentences.
I'll describe you in 3 sentences. You describe me in 3 sentences.
Okay.
I'll go first.
Okay.
You are a man of integrity.
Ooh.
You are very reliable. And sometimes it's confusing when your humor and need for integrity clash.
I like to keep you on your toes. Let me see. Shinn. Shinn is, I would say, unique in his humor. Shinn is loyal as a friend. And Shinn is Shinn. If you know Shinn, that makes perfect sense.
It's true. Since this is the first conversation that we're having that's recorded, what would you say to someone who comes across the KYODAI page for the first time and ask, "What is this?"
You know, I'm still asking that question myself, so I don't even know what I would answer. But I would just say at the moment, what KYODAI is 2 friends that have become brothers and are just seeking and looking to create something. That's what I would say.
Okay. For me, it's the start of a t-shirt brand.
We can vote on that later. It's been denied.
It's been denied. So Sam is actually secretly the creative director of all the aesthetic decisions that I try and sneak past. But for us, we still have a lot of creative pursuits. We have all these ideas. Yeah. We think quite deeply, but most of these thoughts remain thoughts for the most part. Yeah. And at the beginning of the year, you came up with this idea of, hey, what would it look like if we had something that kept us accountable for our creative pursuits? Because we had the intention without the ideas from your perspective. And then for me, it was more about wanting to go out and shoot stuff. When I do videos for work, it's often doing interviews. The context is already set by the business or the organization. But when I have coffee with you, you often have a lot of stories that I think could be turned into some sort of visual project, whether it's photos, whether it's video. And yeah, so that got me excited. The accountability has worked out so far.
Yeah, I think that's almost like accountability by guilt.
I think that's also the other part of it, right? There isn't the pressure to like it doesn't have to be perfect. Like even this is all an experiment, right? Like let's see what a setup for a conversation being recorded would look like. And so far what we've achieved was coming up with a name. I didn't realize how big a deal that would have been because I think weirdly enough, not having a name made it feel unofficial in terms of what we're doing. But it's like, what would it look like if we're creating with the opportunity to share? So
create, share, inspire, and reflect. Sometimes we could start with creating, other times it might start with sharing, other times it might start with just being inspired, or other times by reflecting on something, but it all just connects through at some point. So it isn't step 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it's actually more freeing in that way.
I remember our last conversation, you were talking about a book that you were reading, The Obstacle is the Way. What is one main thing that you've taken from that, and how does that apply to what we're doing?
Oh yeah, such a great book. It wasn't really a new principle that I had learned. It was more something that I realized, I had learned this a while back when I was in Kenya. And I was with some pastors that were out working in the desert, and they were living inside a hut, and it was hard to get water there. To the point that anytime they brought water out, there'd be bees, and the bees would just swarm towards the water because the bees were thirsty. And I think someone on the team just mentioned, I was like, oh man, you guys have a lot of struggles. And the guys just simply said, no struggles here, just opportunities. Which is kind of what that book just reflect, that if we would just begin by changing our perception, then we would see our obstacles not as things that hold us back, but as opportunities. It was just a reminder to not look at, whenever I see an obstacle, to ask the question, what is the opportunity that is here? Let's say, for example, we're doing this podcast, and we could think about every obstacle that is in the way. We could just be thinking, oh, I've never done a podcast. I don't know if I'm going to feel comfortable. I don't know about this. And we start then listing all the different obstacles, versus what if this is just an opportunity to grow? What if this is just an opportunity to take this first podcast and use that as a step towards just becoming better at it,
Right.
versus just having this idea that the first thing that I ever do, I must have already arrived and it has to have been made perfect.
Yeah.
Versus this way, it's kind of just embrace the obstacles and see how you can grow through the process. That's kind of what made me reach out to you, which was, I think there were so many excuses that we kept saying. I think that was a day where I just said, you know what we are? We're just talkers. because we had already been meeting, but we were just talking and talking and talking. And I think because we wanted it to look in such a way that we never got going. And it just became to, let's just go for it and see where it goes. And so this is where we're at now.
Yeah. And I very much appreciate that, because you know how Nike has their tagline of just do it?
Yeah.
If we had a tagline, it's getting to just try it.
Yeah, just try it. Yeah, it's almost like, yeah, for those that can't do it, just try it
Yeah.
at least, because you just don't know. I think it's just, life is just more satisfying when we're in pursuit of the things that might scare us sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think we'll live more at peace with ourselves in having pursued and tried these things that scare us. And so, yeah, we are kind of just try.
Yeah, that's good. And in some sense, we're inviting, by recording this and by sharing it, we're inviting whoever's listening or watching to take part in maybe recognizing what those things are in your own lives, and to not feel like you have to get things perfect before you take the first step.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is us trying in real time, moving from just wishing and actually doing something about some of these ideas.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it goes beyond just the creative world. I think it goes to any part of our lives that we might be pursuing or thinking, or we've been thinking for a long time, whether it's in relationships with friends or family, that there's things that are continually holding on, that just try. Just put yourself out there, make an effort, and see what happens.
Yeah. That's good. Cool. Good job.
All right. Thank you.
First episode done. Don't forget to like and subscribe.